I said, look, I've got a business plan here. I want to launch this. And I was rejected. And we took that almost to a $20 million company within 4.5 years. The mission here, the core DNA of this company, is building great communities.
Welcome to Brand Stories, a podcast where we delve into the journeys behind the brands. Today, we're in Dubai at Studio Red, based in Silicon Oasis. In this episode, we'll be speaking with Reg Athwal, an unrivaled expert in family business dynamics and founder of Verchool. Reg has made a name for himself by transforming the operational strategies of family-owned businesses around the world, and now leads a tech venture that integrates Web3 technologies into business networking. Join us as we uncover the layers of his success, his insights into building sustainable business legacies, and how he's shaping the future of B2B community platforms. Enjoy. Hello, Reg.
Hey, Gareth.
Thank you very much for being on the podcast today.
Thank you for inviting me.
As I said just before we started recording, it's actually been a year since we first met.
Yeah.
So to have you as the first guest on the Brand Stories Dubai tour, is fantastic. So
well done with your journey as well the last 12 months.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So for anyone listening or watching who doesn't know who you are, would you mind just introducing yourself and letting us know a little bit about you?
Yeah. Well, I'm Reg, and wear different hats. Maybe we can talk about that later, but been in Dubai now for almost coming up to 22 years. Originally from the UK, born in a place called Hillingdon in Middlesex, and then grew up around Windsor, also a place called Leatherhead in Surrey, and my roots from my family originally from India.
Fantastic.
I don't know if that answers the question at all, but yeah.
That's the perfect intro. That's everything we need. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So firstly, you, as you said, you wear many different hats. When was your first sort of real role as an entrepreneur? When did you first start your journey?
That's a good question. I think, a reflection with my own journey and also other entrepreneurs that I know, I think there's two sides to that, right? As an entrepreneur, there's a formal side of when you start your first company and build a product and a service, which you start selling to customers, and it's a real business as an entrepreneur, versus entrepreneurial traits, which you've acquired maybe from younger years, maybe influenced from parents and grandparents, uncles, aunties, mentors, whoever it is, and you've got the entrepreneurial spirit. So I think for me, with that second part, the entrepreneurial spirit was there from a fairly young age. I remember when my father bought me a lovely bicycle as a gift, and as I took it towards a park where we played football with my friends, one of my friends says, "That's a beautiful bike, I'd love to have one of those." And I said, "Well, how much will you pay me for it?" And I ended up selling him the bike. So that didn't go down too well. So there's situations like that when I reflect back. Well, there's all sorts of things, that have happened. I remember my father buying a brand new VHS video recorder back in the day. For people who are watching this, some of them may be too young. They're thinking, what is he talking about? But this cassette thing that used to go in before DVDs, and then we would watch. And I just I was fascinated thinking, where did that thing go inside this gadget to show a picture on this screen? Anyway, cutting a long story short, I ended up opening the entire VHS video recorder from tools from my father's garage.
Wow!
Because I wanted to know what was inside. So there's an innovative curiosity engineering part to me linked with the entrepreneurial flair, and I think it's only when you look back, all of us, I talk about unleashing your DNA. It's only when you look back, there's signs there's clues of entrepreneurship as well as other things. But true entrepreneurship, 17. I think once I did all those different things part-time and sort of hustling as a kid. 17 is when I really got into entrepreneurship, and I was influenced by an uncle of mine who was an entrepreneur, and just the way he was doing things, and I was also impressed by his car and his house and everything else that came with it. And I thought, wow, I want a bit of that.
Yeah.
So yeah, the journey really started around that age.
Fantastic. I mean, everything you said then does resonate with the sort of the curiosity, the, you know, how do things work, and obviously I mean, for me, it was stickers at school. I was buying packs of stickers and then selling them on, and, you know, getting high prices. Oh, you know, John, you want it for 50p. I'll go over to Tony, see what he'll buy it for. Yeah. So totally get that. So what was your first business then?
Yeah. So I partnered with someone where we got into marketing. It wasn't really like a brilliant business, but it was really like a discount club. So we'd look for opportunities where if someone wanted membership for certain things, we would basically negotiate a deal and then offer that on a discount. So that went from magazines to entry to restaurants. It was like a membership type club.
Yeah.
So that's where I started in marketing. Failed by the time I was 21. So I went like a bullet train for a couple of years, and then I pretty much, was facing bankruptcy by the time I was 21, which was a tough period. But in reflection, it's the best thing that ever could happen to me. Because when I sat down and told my dad, I said, I've lost all my money and it's not going well. And he said, well, get back to your studies. And what have you learnt from this situation? And in fact, I had probably the best MBA that any entrepreneur could have, or a young adult could have, rather than doing a formal MBA in a business school.
Yep.
Those 3-4 years taught me everything about business, what to do, what not to do, what I was good at, what I wasn't good at. And I think some of the lessons during that first period of my life as an entrepreneur was a realization at the end of that first chapter, as you call it, the first chapter in my life of entrepreneurship, was I was good with sales, I was good with marketing, I was good with PR, potentially like your areas when it comes to branding, but essentially just talking to people. I enjoy talking to people, being able to take an idea and a product or a service or our next offering with our membership and tell people about it. What I wasn't good at was the operational side and the financial side. So as whoever's listening to this, if you're looking to build your company, the lesson there was from day one, you've got to surround yourself with the right people. And a lot of entrepreneurs make the mistake where they try to do everything themselves. And essentially I was doing everything myself. Everything was around, I had to do it. And that was the failure of that business.
Yep.
That was the lesson. I left it too late to then get help because I wasn't on top of my cash flow. I wasn't on top of payments to suppliers. I had operational issues left, right, and center with the processes and systems that were required. So, yeah. Wow. Sorry if I digress, but that's what happened in that first chapter.
Absolutely. I think having that self-awareness and sort of being able to take a step back and realize the points that you are good at and the ones that are perhaps not too strong at, that's a really important part. I mean, many entrepreneurs have fallen into that trap. I know I have. When I first started, I thought I could handle all aspects of the business, and it's just not the case.
Yeah.
Was there ever a point when things weren't going so well that you thought, I don't know if I can do this. I'm just gonna get a job, keep my head down, and just live a quiet life? Was that ever an option for you?
Yeah. So after that chapter, I had influence from family. I also got married very young as well when I'm in my early 20s. So there was influence to say, okay, there was actually two aspects to it. One was influence for people who were more had employee mindset. And there was influence in the family. My father's always been like that. He did not have the entrepreneurial spirit that my grandfather had, and we could talk about that later. So it was always the typical, you must become doctor, dentist, accountant. Right? That was it. Go and become a professional, get a good salary. The typical thing that everyone ends up doing, right?
Yeah.
Or gets influence to do. So I had influence to say, go and get a job, start earning real money, right? Their term of real money, even though I had earned real money, it's just that I didn't manage it correctly, right? I mean, I was up to, within 2 years, we're up to almost $1 million, for that business.
Wow.
So it wasn't a money issue. It was about managing it. But that influence was get a real job. You need security, money coming in every month. That was the mindset. But the other flip side of it, where someone said, well, why don't you work for someone else so you can learn? Why don't you find a mentor? I thought, I prefer that than this. I'm not concerned about the financial side. I like this.
Yeah.
So that's when I ended up stumbling across the executive search headhunting industry. And cutting a long story short, I ended up being mentored by a guy called Mike O'Flynn, and his business partner was a guy called James Kahn. And some people may know, he used to be on Dragon's Den. So James is the one who interviewed me. He's the one who hired me, and I was the youngest person hired, in the entire company. And that was a really good 3-4 years of my life, where it's the only time I'd been formally employed in my entire life. And I'm now 51. So that's the only time I've been employed. The rest of the time I've always been an entrepreneur. But it was great working for people like James and Mike and others, Tony and many other great people in that firm, where I learned how a business operates.
Yes.
And how you really grow a business, and how entrepreneurs think, and how teams are built, and obviously learning about executive search as well at the same time. I became an expert into hiring talent.
Yep.
And eventually I got chairman's award, being number one in the company. Eventually we launched a brand new division with the vision of James and Mike, which became the company that is there today, called Alexander Mann Solutions, and then eventually became a £1 billion company. So it was great to be involved in early stages of setting that up from scratch, being with a great team. And then I got the entrepreneurial itch. So after all of that, I put a business plan together, and I thought, right, I've got a new idea within the space of executive search and HR and these related areas. I was passionate about people. And I pitched some of the shareholders, including James, at that company. And I said, look, I've got a business plan here. I want to launch this. And I was rejected because they were in a different space in terms of their growth plan and what they were doing. And with the blessing of the directors, they said, look, we wish you all the best. You should go for it. We don't want to stop people from pursuing their goals and aspirations, which was nice. But it's going to be a real shame to lose you. And I left, and that's when the next chapter started, of starting my next company with a few $1,000s. Eventually, I found a partner to come in with me, and we took that almost to a $20 million company within 4.5 years. And I was helping Silicon Valley-based companies who were in the US that had funding, and helping them grow their businesses in Europe. So I met Sergey Brin from Google a year after Google started. And they became a client. Then we met Tom Siebel from Siebel Systems, which was one of the earliest CRM companies. And that they became a client. In fact, they became our biggest client. So we ended up hiring all of their executive talent in Europe, and just were hanging on to their tail. They were growing, we were growing, and we saw them go from nothing, literally just from VC funding, from 1 or 2 people in Silicon Valley to becoming a company doing $1 billion in revenue per annum within 8 years. And we grew as a result of that. So great journey. Learned a lot about people, how to build great teams, building a company. Then I had a fallout with my business partner. So that was the next chapter in my entrepreneurial career. There's something in all of these chapters, right? And that was, I learned the next lesson in my life about partnerships. Who do you partner with? When things are going well, and the money's coming in, there's no issues at all. Everyone's happy, right? And this is also with family businesses as well. But when there's a crisis now, and the crisis for us was the year 2000, the internet bubble. That was our crisis, because we had contracts with companies. The contracts started to get cancelled, and it's just so many tech companies were going bust, and it had a knock-on effect on the relationship with my business partner. So eventually there was an exit done. It didn't end too well. A lot of lessons learned about having constant checks and balances of who you do business with. Sometimes people have a different mindset. They change. Are your values still aligned? Are you still in communication on a regular basis? So a whole bunch of things happened there. But again, it was a blessing. I think anyone who's had disaster or crisis or failure, it's only a few years later when you look back, you'll realize that you should be grateful, because it's that moment in your life that opens the next door. It opens the next journey as a result of what happened. And that's exactly what happened to me.
Well,
So that was like the next journey. And in a way, the whole thing about people, getting involved in a service-based business in my first chapter, then getting involved in executive search, headhunting in my second chapter. There's a thread here where the realization of this comes a lot later on in my entrepreneurial journey, where really it was all about understanding people.
yes.
That was at the core. And a lot of that is to do with what happened in my family, coming from a family business bloodline, and seeing disaster from a very young age. I had a lot of questions, but I didn't have answers. So at the core of who I was as an entrepreneur, I was doing all of these things, but at the core, I just had questions.
Yeah.
And I wanted to know about people. I wanted to know about what drives people. How do you create unity and harmony with people? How do you avoid having certain disasters when it comes to family and partnerships? But I wasn't calling it that.
Yeah.
It was all subconscious. Anyway, sorry, I'm digressing.
No, not at all.
These were some of the things that were happening around that time.
So having a business partner, I mean, a few people watching this now have business partners. They may be on their own. What things would they really need to look into before choosing that business partner?
Very good. Yeah, I think number one, try to understand the values of that person. So let me give you an example for the viewers and whoever's watching, listening to this. If I use the word trust as an example, and I said to you, Gareth, what's your interpretation of trust and how trust shows up in a business relationship? How does trust show up at home with your wife, your husband, your kids, your parents, siblings? Now, if you answered that right now, and viewers watching here, they do this still exercise, and you can use any word you want: trust, respect, integrity, whatever it may be as values. Now, if I answer the same question now and come up with my version, our versions will not be the same.
Yep.
Your version of trust is going to be different to my version of trust.
Yep.
Your version of respect is going to be different to my version of respect. Maybe your version is, well, I want daily communication with Reg. My version is, I just need to check in once a week, right? I want to be heard. Yeah. I want you to be able to listen to me and don't interrupt me every time I'm speaking. How many times have you seen people communicate where someone says, can you let me finish?
Yeah.
So there's all these things going on in our head which have come from conditioning, the environments we've grown up in, influence from parents and guardians and whatever, and it's all in our DNA. So it's happening instantly. And if you do something that is different to my version of trust, what starts to happen with that relationship? It's going to show up, right? I want proper communication, but you're not showing me the financial records on a regular basis. Why is that? Are you hiding something? There's all sorts of different interpretations of what now happens in a real business environment. So I would say, first of all, assessment of values.
Yep.
Are your values aligned? And you won't know from meeting somebody once. I learned this from James, one of my mentors. He said, before you do business with anyone, meet someone in different environments as many times as you can.
Yep.
Meet them in your office, meet them in their office, meet them in a hotel, meet them in a coffee shop, have lunch, have dinner. Get your spouses to come together, get families to come together and have a gathering. And you will start to see the true colors of someone over time.
Yeah.
And you'll start to see their values come to the surface. And then you realize, I remember once I was I met someone for a social gathering, and we were about to have this coffee and a bite to at this restaurant in Dubai. And there was a table empty, and this friend of mine, not true friend, but early connection, started speaking to the waiter in a certain way.
Yeah, it is.
Like, can we have that table? And the gentleman said, well, that's reserved, but there was no one sitting there. And this person said, well, obviously, there's nobody here. Like, your restaurant's pretty empty. Can we have that table? Because it was a certain view as well. It was nice. And he's like, yeah, but it's reserved for people later on. And then this person shouted at the waiter, demanding to have that table. And instantly, in that moment, I thought to myself, I am not going to do business with this person.
Yeah. Yep.
Because I want to come from a place of kindness and care. And I got that from my grandfather as well, which it doesn't matter who the person is in life. You know, it doesn't matter how much money they have, what clothes they wear, which part of the world they're from, what color they are, what religion they are. It doesn't matter. You treat people in a certain way. And I want to do business with people like that too.
Yeah.
So that for me is the first one. The second one is to understand clearly where your competencies are with your partner, your strengths and weaknesses. And do you complement each other where, if it was Gareth and Reg, my weaknesses are countered by your strengths and vice versa. Do not hire someone or have a partnership with someone who's the same as you. There's no point. This goes back to my first chapter where I failed, where really what I needed was the operator and the finance type person in my dream team. Just because two people like each other and get on with each other doesn't mean you're going to make great partnership in business.
Yeah.
So these would be a few things.
Fantastic. Yeah, I totally agree. The restaurant, meeting someone in a restaurant and seeing how they interact with the staff there. I've been through that myself, and it's a big eye opener, because you don't know what someone's going to be like unless you put them in those different environments and situations.
Yeah.
But yeah, totally agree with that. So moving on now to family and legacy. So family legacy means a lot to you, and you've talked about your grandfather. Why is it so important to you?
Okay, so the areas that I've covered so far in this journey, think of it like a burger, right? We've touched on a bit of the burger, but there's two buns here, and in this journey there's a bun that I'd like to share now, and then it will link to another bun that brings this whole burger together.
Yep.
And this first bun is to do with growing up in an environment where my grandfather was a first generation entrepreneur in our bloodline. True entrepreneur. We come from humble beginnings in India, from farming and agriculture, moving into then industries, becoming landlords with a lot of land. You know, that essentially was a journey. And the vision for my grandfather was that the second generation, my father's generation, would then carry on building this legacy, protecting what he had built, but also expanding. And that expansion vision came from my father being the first person having a chance to come over to the UK as a teenager. Unfortunately, my father never caught the entrepreneurial bug, and he's the eldest of the male bloodline in the family, so that would have been a bit of a disappointment. But hugely disciplined, hard worker, and great traits, but the entrepreneurial part wasn't there. And I'm the eldest of the third generation male bloodline, of the male side. And from a very young age, we used to go from the UK to India every year for trips. And I spent time with my grandfather, and my grandfather would sometimes put me onto his shoulders, would walk around the land, agricultural farming areas, and he'd be talking to me and sharing stories and saying, one day you'll be looking after all of this. And it was inspiring me. He was injecting me with what legacy is all about and continuity. And I got it. What he was. And then we used to jump into his lovely Jeep. In the back of the Jeep, he'll fill it up with food and bags of cash and money. And we'll go from town to town. And he would give food to people. He'll give money to people. And I saw the philanthropic part of him, the charitable part of him, which also had an impact on me. And so it was like he was my God, you know, he was like, he was my mentor. It was like, wow, I want to be like him. And then when I was around 11 and a half years of age, the phone rang in our residence. My dad picked up the phone and everything changed that moment, because we just heard that he had an accident and passed away. And he wasn't old. He was fairly young. There's not a big gap between, I've got like a 21-year gap between me and my father, and it wasn't far off that. From that generation. And he was at a social gathering, probably had too much to drink as well. We can laugh about it now, what really happened. No one actually knows. All we know is on the rooftop terrace, he was with people, and he fell down the stairs, the concrete steps, and then hit his head at the bottom and died instantly. But yet no one. We've got loads of conspiracy theories over this, right? But anyway, as soon as he passed away, what I started to witness was a war in my family over the assets.
Right.
With the second generation. And a few years later, I was told by my father that those people, I'd never forget those words, those people. What do you mean, those people? He's referring to our family in India. He said, those people are no longer family. I didn't get it. It's like, this doesn't make sense. We've been going every year. I've good time with my cousins. We've grown up together. Grandfather's talking about legacy. And here you guys are destroying the legacy. Why? And I had so many questions on why people are doing these things. Why are people doing this? And this war went on for decades. And it was only until my grandmother got involved eventually, and all of the land was broken up between three brothers, a third. People moved on, but then the communication stopped. There was no connection anymore between the second generation. So for the third generation, myself, being an entrepreneur, growing up in HR, executive search, people-related businesses, understanding people, there was something there from that bun that was not resolved.
Yeah.
It wasn't complete. And this journey was all connected. So as I got into my early 20s, I realized that, is there an opportunity here to help companies who are also going through similar challenges, but nothing happened. And then I got to late 20s. And at that time, I became a speaker as well. And I started to create keynotes around building successful teams because of my search background and the company I'd built from scratch. I also talked about my bankruptcy type moments in my early adulthood and helping people who are a lot older as entrepreneurs not make those mistakes. And people loved the story. They loved the journey. And I got booked more and more as a speaker. And then I came across some family businesses. Cutting a long story short, eventually, this is around 22 years ago, I was speaking at a conference in the Middle East, about 500 people, leadership conference, around 2002, 2003. And there were two gentlemen from Saudi Arabia in the room. And they waited patiently during the break time to come over and speak to me. They said, Mr. Reg, we love your content. We love what you spoke about. And it was all about building dream teams in a business environment. We believe we've got business issues. And in our family business in Saudi Arabia, we need someone like you to maybe come and have a look at what we're doing and help us with the business issues. Would you be open to coming to Jeddah in Saudi Arabia? And I used to love traveling at the time and never been to Saudi Arabia at the time. I thought, I'd love to come. So eventually I went there, was there for a week. And in my journal, my black journal, I was writing all names of all the people I was meeting every day. And by the end of the week, I'd met 47 family members. It was a fourth generation family business, one of the largest in Saudi Arabia at that time and still is today. And I didn't understand the concept of large family businesses.
Yeah.
I really didn't understand what that meant. And with what had happened in our family, I was inspired by this family. 4 generations. However, what I also picked up during that week as they were showing me their businesses, they didn't really have business issues. They were telling me they had business issues. The realization for me was family issues. Because they were all trusting me that week and talking to her. They didn't have someone like me show up that they could confide in and talk to openly. And each one was having their own one-to-ones with me, telling me their own version of what was going on. And I thought, wow, they don't see what I see. That bun over here. Yeah, the sabotage that happened, they're going to go through this.
Yeah.
I think I can save them. It was like that feeling like,
wow,
look, can I be the hero here? I think I can save them. And at the end of the week, I had a meeting with the seniors and they said, well, what do you think? What have you noticed this week? What do you think? Can you help us on the business side? I said, well, I'm going to be honest. And I did it in a very respectful manner to the seniors and the family. And I said, you really don't have business issues. This is what I told them about the story about my grandfather. And a senior member, he said, no one's ever spoken to us like this before. Thank you for being so honest. You're right. But we don't talk about these things. Will you help us? I said, I can on one condition. I said, I've got experience to do with people. I can articulate myself. I can relate to everyone in the family. But in parallel, if I'm going to do this, I need time where I need to go and visit and do my research and go and find as many family businesses around the world that have gone beyond 4 generations, because I had not done that before.
Yep.
And that's it. The whole journey started a week later.
Wow.
Not only working with them, but I was on a mission, traveling to Austria and Germany and France and Japan and India and US. And I was looking for examples, which was published in one of my books, of families that had gone beyond 4 generations. And, only 3% of family businesses get to 4th generation, build a 100-year plus legacy. 97% don't make it. Due to all sorts of reasons. Many, I can list out 150 right now reasons. But a lot of it is to do with because that connection is not there. The communication has gone. The harmony, the unity is not there. There's a disconnect between family members, especially when there's more and more family members that come along. So for me, I'm passionate about legacy.
Is it?
That journey from that one client launched an advisory company. I wasn't looking to build an advisory company. And eventually we created a company called RTS Global Partners in our family. We also then create our own family constitution and charter. We then create our own holding company as a family, and everything my grandfather wanted to do.
Yep.
We sort of skipped 1 generation and then eventually brought some of them back into the equation. And then from 3rd generation, we then carried on. And now we've got an entire structure of our own with a holdco trust foundation. We've got entrepreneurs in the family. We've been involved in about 15 different companies as family members, very diverse businesses.
Yep.
And all of that is linked into a 150 plus page document called a family charter and constitution, which is a roadmap for all our policies and procedures and guidelines and values of how we operate our operating system as a family.
Yep.
To go beyond, 100, 200 years as a legacy. So it gets passed on, that philosophy. And it's working. I'm really glad on my side, I've got 4 next-gen members who are all big now entrepreneurs. On my sister's side, we've got 2 young nephews and grooming them. My sister's an entrepreneur. My brother-in-law's an entrepreneur. We're all entrepreneurs, and we've got a structure around how that operates. So for me, the legacy side is really important.
Yep.
What I've witnessed with all these families around the world that were successful, from first to 12th generation families. One was a 12th generation family. I had a chance to meet some members in Japan from a Ushi family, which is now heading to a 48th generation family business legacy.
Wow.
Been around for over 1,400 years. Yeah. So I love legacy.
Yeah.
I'm passionate about legacy. I find it fascinating that we all have a short period of time in this body, in this lifetime. It's 70 years, 80 years, 90 years, and it goes like that.
Yep.
So, we're not going to take any of these things with us in terms of our wealth and our mansions and our yachts and our jets and our businesses. It's only what we leave behind and the journey that we've had in that time frame.
Yep.
Enjoying it and creating good memories and building something which could be left behind. And even if there aren't any assets to leave behind, then we may have left behind influence,
Yes.
conditioning, good values, a good operating system, which hopefully that next generation can take with them. So with these 2 buns now, how this sort of links, this journey then resulted with our advisory company of working with 208 families, which we've worked with now in the last 2 decades. A lot of them now become close friends. We've supported them as non-executive directors, family advisors, co-invested in opportunities with them. So we've built a fantastic inner circle now of family offices, family businesses all around the world in 25 countries. And it's been a wonderful journey. I'm blessed, and I wouldn't change any of that journey as a result of the failures and other challenges that happened. All those families we work with are together. None of them are split. All of them are heading towards being multi-generational family legacies, which is very important to me. And I'm called Uncle Reg by a lot of the youngsters, and that means a lot to me. So I hope that helps. That's the sort of journey. But
Absolutely.
Legacy, the research is ongoing. This is the last book I published called The Family Business Messenger.
Yeah.
And this one is based on 24 parables, 24 stories of true events we've witnessed of the most extreme situations with families. Obviously, names have changed, industries have changed, locations have changed. So, because what we realized, we need to get the message out to people.
Absolutely.
In a story format.
Yeah.
Because the book prior to this was all more reference-based and case study-based.
Yep.
So, that's the journey. Then the family business area has allowed me to become authority in this space. So I've spoken around the world. I've done programs with Harvard Business School, YPO, EO, Vistage, many great membership organizations, being an authority in this area. And then I've developed spin-off businesses with some clubs to bring family offices together. And then the journey, the last 20 months or so, actually coming up almost 2 years as of next month, is from one idea and building an entire new company and building our own family office zone now on our own spatial web platform and using Metaverse and Web3. So, but all of this is linked.
Well, I'm really glad you touched on that, because this is the part I want to get onto now. So myself and Sherbet Lemon have been fortunate enough to be a part of.
And if anyone gets a chance to go to our website, hopefully it's in the description somewhere here. The beautiful logo and the animation and everything, the branding was done by your company. So
thank you very kindly, really appreciate that. But it's been a fantastic project to work on. Could you explain a little bit more about it?
Yeah, I could spend hours on this, so I know we're going to run out of time, but I'll try to keep it brief. The original idea, and here's a lesson for entrepreneurs as well, what you think is a good idea, what you're going to work on may not be where you end up with the business and the model. But the original idea, when I started looking at Web 3.0 in 2021, around the time that Facebook became Meta, right? That really got my attention. And I'd already invested back in the day in a Web 2 business where I worked with an Emirati partner in the UAE, and we launched a video platform company a year after YouTube started. And then with my first headhunting company working with Silicon Valley-based businesses was all Web 1. So being in and around Web 1, Web 2, directly and indirectly, and I always thought to myself, with everything that I've done, could I link this with technology?
Yep.
And I'd love to build a technology company one day, because I've been around this space. And when this conversation around Web3 and Metaverse came up, I thought, is there a possibility that one day a fourth generation, fifth generation family could have a young boy or a girl who logs in and sees their great-great-great-great-great-grandfather in this holographic image that looks real. And that founder says, let me tell you about the journey of how the family business started.
Wow.
And then says, come with me. And then takes them on the journey where they can see that farmland, agricultural land, that first shop, whatever that business was, and inspire those children to say, this is our legacy. That was the idea, right? And at the time it wasn't doable, but the technology would be coming. And that inspired me enough to start doing research on Web 3.0 from that original idea. But the way I do things now, things I've learned as an entrepreneur, is do your research properly.
Yep.
So over 6 months, while we were playing around with the idea of what this could look like, we decided to do proper research, and we spoke to 750 companies in the Middle East. CEOs, CIOs, CTOs, Zoom after Zoom, Microsoft team after team, webinars, physical meetings, back to back, literally 6 months with my team. And we were asking 2 core questions to all of these people. Number one, what is your understanding of Web3, spatial web, metaverse, virtual extended reality, AI as well at that time? And number 2, where are your biggest B2B pain points right now?
Yep.
And we focused not only on family business conglomerates, we also spoke to corporates and government entities as well to have a good mix.
Yep.
What came back was interesting. Number one, 99% didn't have a clue of Web 3.0. So the understanding there was whatever we do, it's going to take time.
Yeah.
People need to be educated. And whatever the technology is, it's going to take time for adoption.
Yes.
Sometimes when you think something's really cool and this is the next best thing, and you put all your energy into it, the customer may not be ready to buy anything right now. And I've learned that lesson in the past as an entrepreneur. So I thought, let's do the research. Okay, great. So people have to be educated. It's going to take time. Number 2, B2B. What came back was we realized a gap with a lot of businesses and government entities and associations around community building. That's where we saw the gap.
Yep.
So give you an example. Here we are in Dubai right now doing this podcast with you, and in the UAE, United Arab Emirates, there's around almost 70 economic zones. They call them free zones. Free zones are a place where you would register your company to trade in this country and do business and be legal, have a legal entity. The zones are broken into different verticals throughout the country, from Dubai Internet City, Dubai Media City, Sharjah Publishing City, Dubai International Financial Center, Abu Dhabi Global Markets. These are all economic zones and free zones. We did our research and realized that on average, these free zones had around 5,000 customers, B2B customers on average. Some have a lot more than that. But when we went deeper, we realized that their renewal rate on average was around 65% every year. Okay, again, some higher, some lower. So losing about 35% of their customers a year. That's huge, right?
Yep.
Every year. But no one really cared because it's boom time. There's more people coming in, more businesses being set up every month, so the numbers still work out.
Yeah.
But when we looked at the maths of even going up by 5, 6, 7% of that renewal, it's worth millions of dollars on the bottom line. So that was one area that we identified. Then we looked at associations. There's 68,000 associations around the world that have more than 1,000 paying members each. Association of this microphone association, the book association, the table association, right? The lighting association. There's association for everything, right? The plant association. But 68,000 of them have a minimum of 1,000 paying members each. But when we looked at that area, you may get to a quarterly chapter meeting or get to one of the local sessions every 6 months. You wait for the annual summit or the annual conference. You have a boring Web 2.0 portal directory website. And yet, you've got all these great people in these associations, but how are they connecting with each other? Where is the real community building? And all of them have intelligence. All of them want to grow their businesses. And going back to the government side, if all of those 5,000 could be supported to grow their businesses, there would be more stickiness and loyalty.
Yep.
The renewals would shoot up. So these were two things. Then we looked at LinkedIn, something more modern. 2 million groups on LinkedIn. 2 million groups. Some may have 100 people, some 1,000, some 500,000. We looked at the top 15 and we went through every single one of them and realized lack of engagement. Administrator posting something, someone trying to hack the algorithm, right? Play games with algorithm to see if they can get more likes and comments in there. And hopefully that helps their PR. But essentially it's becoming a PR marketing engine, right? And we've now got fake profiles on there. Okay, there's fake, all sorts of things happening. People are being bombarded with in-mails and marketing messages. So for me, the true essence of really connecting and building a network and building a community doesn't exist there. Yeah, it can happen sometimes, but overall, that's not the business model.
Yeah.
So once we identified these areas, we got to work with our own family office that we've got, where we put in anything from $50,000 to $1 million per startup with in our family businesses. We allocated up 500,000. Initially, it's now up to 1.25 million allocation to this business. And over the 2 years, all the effort went into building a platform. We're about 33 people right now in the company, made up of our engineering team, made up of our senior management team, 4 people at C-level, and then we've got an advisory board as well. And all we did is we focused on building this platform, and now it's built 20 months later, and it's an entire integrated Web3, spatial web, virtual extended reality, and AI platform. In summary, it's a B2B community platform using these technologies. And on the platform, we build zones. So thinking about the research that we did at the beginning with economic zones, well, we're actually building our own zones. There are communities, private communities, for specific verticals or niches within verticals. So for example, the first one, which is our go-to-market, we launched 10 weeks ago. It's called the Family Office Zone. Our next zone launches in 2 weeks' time is the Venture Capital Zone. A month after that, we launched Luxury Assets Zone with a JV with a company called Matterport Inc. in the US, which is a NASDAQ company. And then in our pipeline for the rest of this year, we have Private Equity Zone, FinTech Zone, Climate Tech Zone, and it goes on through to the ones I'm looking forward to building is Space Industry Zone and Auto Mobility Zone. So really great verticals to go. So all of these communities will have at least 200 businesses that use the platform in the zone to communicate with each other for us to accelerate and facilitate connections, which then drives more trust between them, which eventually results into more collaboration and commerce, and people get access to people they've never met before and build new networks globally. And we can help people go from virtual to physical and bridge the gap. Also from physical to virtual. We don't want people to replace the physical world. What we're saying is come into the platform and the zone, and even if you're in here for 1 or 2 hours in a week, or drop into some of the live sessions every couple of weeks, that's fine.
Yep.
So what we've managed to achieve with a family office zone, which is mainly for single family offices, multi-family offices, family business conglomerates, family investment holding companies, and surprise, surprise, why did we start there? Because of my last 20 years and leveraging that. So another lesson for entrepreneurs is try leverage something early on that you know.
Yep.
Yeah, you already know that industry. That can go a long way rather than trying to do something from scratch. Because the platform's new. If I add another new industry on top of a new platform, we've got 2 areas where we could fail.
Yeah.
So let's eliminate one. So we thought, let's start with something that we know. So we've had, as of last night, we had our 20th, what we call boardroom live session in the Family Office Zone, which is one of our features of our products. And we've had 190 participant firms come through Boardroom Live in 10 weeks.
Wow.
That's 190 companies with their respective decision makers. We've had executive chairmen of large companies. We had one person in last night who handles a $5.5 billion family office, 7th generation. So it's not about Gen Zers only coming into this environment.
Yep.
The good thing is there's no headsets required.
Yep.
We learned that very early on, that's going to take a bit of time for adoption. Let Apple and Meta go to war right now
absolutely.
over that. So it's web browser based, straight in through a web browser. And the features we've built, there's something called Boardroom Live, which is 11-seater boardroom, where you get your own orb as your identity, and your orb drops into one of the boardroom seats. It's a full immersive experience. We've got video panels. You can see each other. There's audio, there's chat, document management workstation. Last week, we've just integrated with Salesforce in the platform. We can share presentations. There's a whole bunch of features that we've created, which is in Zoom, MS Teams, Google Meet on steroids. That's the only way I can describe it. It's all our own intellectual property. The next stage of evolution of Release 1.1, we now move from boardroom to marketplace. So we built an entire marketplace where every member has their own HQ, has their own virtual office, and privately they can have access to that and have their own boardroom live sessions with their suppliers, customers, with their management team. We've then got AI matchmaking, which we've created. So now with all the data in there, or the profiles of all the members, instead of where you're trying to connect with people on something like LinkedIn, here automatically with the AI matchmaking tool and algorithm, it's already notifying you in real time to say Gareth is expanding his business in the UAE and is doing something in, let's say, climate tech.
Yep.
Reg's profile shows clearly that he's invested in climate tech.
Mm-hmm.
Both of us are notified. And then linked to our calendar, instantly we can accept. We can check each other's profile and accept. Drop into the boardroom and have a meeting, or I can invite you to my virtual HQ in the marketplace and have a meeting there, or come out of the platform altogether. So we want to make that more and more sophisticated, and we've created 2 joint venture companies with 2 other tech companies called Virtual AI and Virtual Networks, where this is going to go to a different level.
Yeah.
And then beyond that, other features that we've got is a clubhouse, which is a 50 to 100 seater room, an academy, which is a 500 to 1,000 seater room, and a library, which will eventually become like a B2B version of Netflix using Gen AI technology. So these are all the fascinating things linked into the technology. The vision that we have is to build 1,500 zones in the next 10 years.
Wow.
For different, and the mission here, the core DNA of this company is building great communities. Because when you have communities that thrive and people trust each other and can support each other and get access to people all over the world, things happen faster. This is not just about transactions.
Yep.
And that is my mission here. For me, building legacies has always been there, but building communities drives legacy as well. And that's what we're doing with Verchool.
Fantastic. So if anyone would like to be a part of it or see what's going on there, where would they go for this?
Hopefully, maybe here on the description or on your website, they can find it. But we have a spin on the word virtual. So it's Verchool, which is spelled VERCHOOL. So VERCHOOL.com. And the reason why we came out with that brand identity, and you've been part of that journey with us, is the VER in Verchool also stands for virtual extended reality. And what we also wanted was a brand identity, a spin on a word that we could own.
Yep.
We did not want anything related to the word spatial or meta. It's crowded, you get lost. And that's something I've learned from great mentors and advisors, which is create a brand identity that you can absolutely own. So it's Verchool. Some kids, Gen Zers, look at it. My kids looked at it and read it as very cool or Verchool. So some people do call it Verchool sometimes, but it's Verchool. So that's the brand. You can also go to familyoffice.zone for our specific zone for family offices. And also now live is venturecapital.zone.
Awesome.
So these are different sites.
Awesome. Well, Reg, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show today.
Yeah.
Love chatting with you as always. We'll put all the details in the description below. And you can check out Reg and Verchool yourselves. So, Reg, thank you very much.
And also regarding the book,
yes,
if anyone liaises with your office,
yes,
and we get their email address, we will give them a free PDF copy of this book.
Oh, fantastic.
Okay? And we'll get it out to them through your office. Is that okay?
Absolutely. That sounds incredible. You heard it here first, guys. Amazing. All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Rath.
Thank you for tuning in to Brand Stories. Make sure to follow us on social media for behind-the-scenes content and updates on future episodes. Until next time, keep building, keep dreaming, and keep sharing your brand story.